KCAA.
Are you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
And welcome, friends. You're tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or you can listen the worldwide over at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed. Just a reminder, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Just go to Viewpoint with Father John. Also, if you miss any of our shows, just go to YouTube in the search bar, put Viewpoint with Father John, KCAA, and you can watch all the past episodes, including after this one is uploaded tonight. And if you are a fan of Twitter, you can get Twitter-pated by twittering me at Father John Reed, and Father is spelled out. So join us on Twitter as well. It's just kind of a neat little thing I'm discovering now, although I think I'm starting to get carpal tunnel syndrome from typing with my thumbs. All of God's children are endowed with extraordinary purpose and ability. I'm on a quest to help as many as possible in fully realizing their divinely inspired potential. Disposing a false narrative and embracing genuineness inspires clarity of purpose. My role is to help overcome self-imposed limitations in realizing one's spiritual potential. And folks, I want to tell you about my favorite pharmacy in the city of Claremont, which is Claremont Pharmacy. Doesn't that work out well? And they're on the corner of Indian Hill Boulevard and Arrow Highway. Dr. Nikki Ho is the proprietor of this establishment, and they take care of all my diabetic needs. If you're tired of feeling like a number at some big box pharmacy, try the experience you'll have at Claremont Pharmacy. I think you'll be very happy with it. I know I am, and it's the best thing I ever did was taking my prescriptions over there. Dr. Nikki is really on top of things, and she really cares. And while you're in town, why don't you have a nice outside breakfast at BC Cafe over on the corner of San Jose and Indian Hill, just off the 10 freeway. Good meals, good prices, and come hungry because they give you a real plate of food. This isn't no skimpy place. And tell Jose or Rocky or any of the staff there that Father John said hi. And if you see me sitting at one of the tables, by all means, come over and say hello because, I really do appreciate when some of you come and meet me. In fact, I had the great pleasure. I was in Tucson, Arizona over the weekend leading a men's spiritual retreat. And one of our listeners over there in Tucson got a hold of me, and we actually had a cup of coffee. So that was kind of neat. So, I do enjoy meeting you. You're a great group, and I have discovered I have some of the smartest and most enlightened listeners in the world. Now, we always got to do this part at the beginning of the show, which is very difficult, and that is to talk about COVID. Currently, the number of deaths, according to Johns Hopkins University, so you know that's creditable, is 228,636. That was just before going on air. That's the current count. And confirmed cases is 8,943,577. That's just in the United States, folks. So please treat this like what it is. I'm doing funerals left and right for people dying of COVID. Some of them who did everything they're supposed to do right, but somebody who refused to wear a mask came and visited them, and now I'm doing their funeral. If not for yourself, for the people around you. And one last thing before I bring our guest in, this is not a paid advertisement, but I always want to tell you that if you want really good, straight information on topics that involve what's going on in the federal government or some of the things happening in our society, tune into my friend Glenn Kirshner. He has a channel on YouTube called Justice Matters. He's a straight shooter, guys. I know him personally, and he's one of my heroes. Again, he doesn't have a political bias on this. It's just straight information. And do like I do, fact check him. He always comes through. And in fact, he put out a great video today. So again, it's called Justice Matters, and check out Glenn Kirshner. Now, I'm excited because I asked a dear friend of mine to come on this evening because of all the stress that people are feeling and all the anxiety, and really this is probably the most hostile election that we've had in generations. And so I asked my dear friend, Dr. John Smith, who is a psychotherapist, he's a professor, and also the author of the book, The Authentic Man, A Guide to Happiness and Purpose. So I asked him to be our guest tonight so we can talk about, if you do not transform your pain, you will transmit it. And I'm trying to not transmit my pain tonight because the reason you're hearing me through a phone tonight is because on the way to the radio station, my car died. Yes, I did give it last rites, rubbed a little holy oil on it, and so and waited for the tow truck. So that's where things are. So, Dr. John Smith, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Father John. Now I feel guilty. Oops.
I'm getting
we have a little feedback there. I don't know if you heard that or not. But I thank you very much for having me. I feel now guilty because I didn't come to the studio with you and drive you so that your car broke down. And so now we'll start off tonight with me feeling guilt. Just teasing, but actually I do feel a little bad about that. But anyway, thank you for having me back. And I know I've been a regular, but thank you for having me back. I think this is really an important night. I think we're going to do some good stuff tonight.
Well, good. Well, I appreciate you coming on because you always bring so much to the show, and that's why I have you as often as I do because, we do have great listeners that really are on top of things, and they appreciate a smart guest who really can give them good information. So we're talking a little bit about if you do not transform your pain, you will transmit it. And
I saw that from you earlier today, and my God, that just resonated with me like 1,000%. I'm just going to I'm going to start out tonight with some personal stuff, if you don't mind.
By all means.
I'm in a lot of pain. The pain I'm in, I think, has more to do with, well, let me back up. I'm what's called an empath. Mm-hmm. So an empath is someone who picks up on other people's pain. So that makes me a really darn good therapist, but right now when everybody's in pain, it sort of overwhelms me because I can't separate my pain from everybody else's.
Right.
And the reason I'm saying that is that, so I'm guessing that the majority of people right now, because of COVID, because of what's going on politically, because of what's just happening between people, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, over the course of the evening, but it's just affecting me in such a negative way that I'm weary, I'm burned out, I'm depressed, I'm sad. But I also know that if I go down, the people that depend on me are going to go down. So I have to stay strong, and I have to deal with it, and I have to figure it out. And I'm just saying that to you because that's where I'm at right now, and I'm sure that most of the audience is at least there, if not further along down the line.
Absolutely. You know what? I get the tying into people's feelings. I also do that as well.
Yeah.
And with anxieties being so high and people being so vulnerable, it's like diving into a pot of boiling water almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that's about how it feels to me, to be honest.
Me too.
And particularly the fact that people are really making a political issue where to wear a mask, not wear a mask. I was at a gas station today for all the good it did me. And and here's a guy marching around without a mask and looking at everyone as though to say, I dare you to say something.
Yeah.
And what that implies to me is this guy's probably been angry for a long time and not felt like anyone listened to what he had to say, and this is his way to demand to be heard. I could be wrong about that, but that was just kind of what I was picking up from this guy. I'm not a psychic.
Yeah.
I do pick up some feelings, and it's like this is the first time he can make somebody listen to his point of view.
Yeah. No, I get that. And, I mean, all right, I'm probably going to, or you're going to get some emails on this, but a lot of people are acting like angry children.
Yes.
Right? They're not being, like you just said, they're not being heard. They're not being, they think they're right. They're just emotional. They don't know what to do with it. So they're just acting out, whether that's in terms of not wearing a mask, whether that's in terms of their Facebook posts, whether that's in terms of their political stance. And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to think and how to feel. That's not what I'm doing. Although I've been attacked personally recently for people that said that I was feeling a certain way or thinking a certain way, which I wasn't, but that's just the way things are going right now. People are just looking for excuses to attack others. I don't understand it, but okay, that's the way it is. All I'm saying with all of that is that I suppose my message for the night is, how do we reconnect in a positive way to support and love one another? Because I've always thought you can either come from a place of love or you can come from a place of anger. Right. And right now I see most people coming from a place of, it's actually fear and love, not necessarily anger. I see most people coming from a place of fear, which sometimes looks like anger, but the fear is I guess losing something, or fear of something happening to them. And I really, 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 and I think your job and my job over the next many years even is going to be how to get people back to a place of love, not fear and anger.
Well, yeah, and the way I was taught, anger is really a secondary emotion, not a primary, because it's the direct response of fear, and our way of trying to protect us from that feeling of fear. And
correct.
I know in my case, I can remember growing up, and whenever I was facing a bully and trying to sound tough, I'd always hear that quiver in my voice of the fear, and then it would turn to anger so I could defend myself.
Right. Well, that gave you the energy and strength to fight off whatever the threat was, but then at the end of the day, what was motivating that was actually a state of fear, right?
Exactly. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah. Okay.
And right now we have a public politic that demonizes. And
yes.
When you have to choose a side, when it's so binary, and you're told that half the population is bad or evil or whatever, now everyone's afraid of everyone. So, as you would probably say, it's the fight or flight response.
Exactly.
And then we pick up on each other's fears. You don't have to be an empath for that, because fear smells like danger to us, and subconsciously. And
yes,
and so
exactly.
We're all walking on eggshells. Part of us wants to scream out, "Hey, I'm right." The other one is terrified that you're going to get attacked. Would that capsulize it a little bit?
Yep, I think you said it 100%. So that fear that I'm being general, but I think I'm going to say we all have. I don't know if everybody has it, but I know probably that's fair to say that the majority of people have it right now. Anger masks fear. I mean, anger is a great defense against fear. If I'm angry and I'm lashing out, then I don't have to be vulnerable.
Well, speaking of fear, I'm afraid we're going into our first commercial break. I heard a
Wow,
little bit of my
okay.
music cue. And and before I put Frank in a fight or flight where he hangs up on both of us, we'll go to break,
Okay.
and we'll be back in 90
that's
seconds.
fine with me. All right, take care.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
In the Inland Empire, you know how much it means to have neighbors you can count on, like the Cookout Kings who invite you over every weekend for Burger Palooza. Well, here's another good neighbor you can count on, State Farm agent Joe Amlani. He and his team are here to help life go right when you combine your home and auto insurance, which can save you money and time. So combine home and auto and start the savings rolling. Call State Farm agent Joe Amlani, 909-894-4619 today.
And welcome back, friends. You are tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or you can listen from anywhere in the world at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John. I am your host, Father John Reed. And a shout out to our global listeners. You know, I appreciate the fact that you still follow the show. And I really enjoy the letters you send me, the emails and such. I appreciate that you are that involved with the show because you really are important to this. I also want to give a special thanks to Frank, our sound engineer, who's working double time tonight by helping us with both of us on the phone tonight. So he's the actual master and brains of the show tonight. So Frank, thank you for all your help. I appreciate it. And you're okay for a guy who sits in a booth.
He's amazing. Thank you, Father John. He's a great guy.
And he and I are teaming up on Tuesday night because we've both been asked to work the election returns for NBC, KCAA.
Wow.
And
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So I'm going to call my doctor, ask
guys.
for a dozen Xanax, and
Yeah.
because
I think that's a job beyond anybody's expectation, but I'm glad you're doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, ladies and gentlemen, our guest this evening, and it's one of my closest friends, Dr. John Smith, who is a psychotherapist. He's a professor and the author of the book, The Authentic Man, A Guide to Happiness and Purpose. And folks, that's a great book. I've read it and reread it, and I've given it as gifts because it's that good. So, and it's not just for men. Women, I recommend it for you as well.
Yes.
I think you'll see the real genius that's in that book. So, before we went to commercial break, we're talking about the fight or flight and the other stuff that's going on, how we're all operating in fear. And what would you like to add to that?
Well, okay, so, it's first thing I want to say is that that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's crazy or impaired when they're having these responses. Some people are going to have a bigger response because they've had previous trauma, and so that's going to make what's happening now even greater. It's going to affect them. It might make them more depressed. It might make them more anxious. It might just make them more hypervigilant and aroused, like they're always on guard. They're feeling a little stressed, maybe a little paranoid, but not in a clinically bad sense. So all
Right.
of those things are normal. And I want to clarify that it's normal so that people don't think that they're out of their minds or they're going crazy or whatever. So if that's happening, okay, it's normal. The problem is, okay, what are we going to do with it when it's happening? Well, how are we going to handle it? Well, some people can have coping skills that will allow them to deal with it on their own. All right, great. If you're one of those people, that's great. But some people are going to have it so that it's affecting their life. It's going to affect their work. It's going to affect their family. It's going to affect their relationships. And if that's the case, and I truly believe that after all of this is said and done, it's going to be like a tidal wave of mental health conditions or issues. But I just want to tell people right now that if they're having issues, it's not necessarily because they're crazy or something's wrong with them. My focus on anything I do is what happened to you. So things that are happening now may trigger things that happened to them in other phases of their life. That being said, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I was going to say, that being said, that whatever's happening to them now isn't necessarily directly related to what's happening now. It could be related to other stuff that's happened to them before, and so it's igniting stuff now that is related to stuff that happened before. That'll take another show, Father John, to actually explain that. But the point being is that people that are experiencing problems related to this aren't necessarily, they're going to think they're, quote, crazy or that something's wrong with them. And I'm going to say, no, everything that's happening is natural and normal and expected, and you're not sick. It's something that's happening that you might need help getting over, but it's not something that you're not crazy. You're not damaged. You're not there's nothing wrong with you. And I say that over and over again because I think that's so important. That I want people to understand that.
Yeah, it's situational, not clinical. And
yes.
And what you're mentioning, something I sometimes do with my counseling clients when we're doing regression therapy, is when they're having a feeling, I have them close their eyes and think back. Where have you had this feeling before?
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be the same situation as you're having now. Let's talk about the feeling. And it's amazing what comes up. This is going on when I felt this before. And then we're able to deal with that, and that actually helps bring them here.
Perfect. And that's exactly, that's what I do, because I do the same thing. It's like in a similar way, I say, okay, so whatever you're going through now, as you scan through your history from childhood to present, is there an event or an experience that comes to mind? I call it an old movie in your head.
Good term.
Because most people get that. I say, is there an old movie or something that stands out or comes to mind that comes up right now? And most people will get that. Yeah, there's one. Maybe there's more than one, but okay, yeah, there's one. Okay. So I always say, as you think of that movie right now, on a scale of 1 being not much at all, 10 being really strong, what do you feel? Well, okay, so if it's a significant number, like 8, 9, 10, whatever, then that's the one that we work on. And the good news about what I do, and I'm not trying to promote me, but the way I do things is you don't have to talk about or tell anybody about what happened. A lot of therapists believe that they have to tell people their story. They have to go into it over and over again. They have to, tell all the gory details. And that's what a lot of therapists are trained to do. I'm just saying what I do doesn't require them to have to tell anything really much at all. What I'm trying to do is get the software of the mind to update so it doesn't produce the negative feeling at all. You've witnessed this, Father John. You've seen me do it. You know that it's possible. I'm not trying to promote me. I'm just trying to tell people that there are ways to resolve previous traumas, current traumatic experiences without having to necessarily go into a lot of details about what happened, which is very painful and sometimes very re-traumatic. So I try to help people not have to do that if I can.
Well,
Sorry to go off on that, but
it just reminded me that when you were showing me this process, you said on my upgrade, you're really, with me, you're starting with a floppy disk, and we had a whole lot to do to get me up to get me to a thumb drive. So
yeah.
So folks were kidding on that one. So people are taking notes and they're saying, "Oh, okay."
Well, I hope people are taking notes because I'm not trying to promote me. I'm just trying to say there are ways to resolve this without having to do things that are horribly painful and difficult.
Right. And I've seen you do this, and I've been able to interview the people who did it on a workshop that you and I were doing together.
Yeah.
And they got a lot of benefit from it, and they really, and they were shocked at how easily you were able to bring the stuff out in a non-threatening way.
Right.
And then put it in its proper place in the picture, so to speak.
Yeah.
If I'm describing that correctly.
Yeah, no, perfect. Yeah, exactly.
So, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I hope it does for the listeners too, because I know in my clinical training, we're always taught, they should make a 4 to 5 year commitment. And And then I have people looking, kind of playing at me that I was doing a lot of these things in 6 months with some people. And you have it down better than that. And one of the areas where I think, have it in common, where you have a much more advanced technique than what I do, and I'm very impressed with it, is that we do what I call getting down to causes and conditions.
Yes.
And when we can do that, and where that ties in with where we're going right now, is people are feeling traumatized daily. I know this sounds funny for a guy in radio to admit this, but news has a track right now where people keep tuning in if you keep them mad and afraid. They're angry and afraid.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. What was it? Who?
The news media.
Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Okay, good.
No,
thank you. Yes.
And I come here when I first started getting into radio, and I was learning more about this. There's a certain thing about that. It's because fear and anger are what they call sexy. They will get people to tune in every time. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not some good journalists out there. There are.
Well, and I was thinking about that today, Father John. I was thinking, all right, who do you trust in the news? Yes, there are people that are truthful, that are honest, that are telling the truth, and yet there are people that are trying to sort of distort the truth towards their opinion or whatever their side is. How do you trust? Who do you trust? And back when maybe you and I were growing up, maybe that was still going on then, but I always used to trust, the major networks, the NBCs, the CBS, the ABCs. They were always, apparently, maybe I'm wrong, but they were always seemingly telling what was going on. They were reporting the truth. They were reporting it as it was happening. And now there's so many different outlets for news and information that who do you trust? Is it true? Is it fact? Is it fake? Is it not true? I don't know. I'm throwing that out because that's a big issue.
Well, yeah, and you have to research to find our common day Walter Cronkite, or Tom Brokaw.
Yes, and I don't think we have one, to be honest.
Well, there are a few that I've found, but one of the things one of the tip-offs I try to tell people who ask me about it is if it involves a conspiracy theory, it's
Mhm.
garbage. And there's a few of them right now that are making a living just
Oh, my
putting out
gosh.
the craziest conspiracy theories, and people are buying them. I think one of the reasons that they're buying what some of these people are selling is because they feel all this anxiety inside, and this gives them something they can attach it to
Good
and
point.
say,
Good point.
no wonder I'm afraid. I have good reason to be afraid. Look at this.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, I could make judgments on it, but that's not my point here tonight. I'm not going to make political commentary about what I think or how I feel, but yes,
Right.
you are absolutely correct.
And one of the things I'd like to point out, and I sure like to get your comment on it, I'm finding a lot of people are having nightmares, and I think after this
yes.
election is finished, people are going to be really having nightmares no matter who gets elected. And I think it's because we have been so over and saturated with the fear, the anger, the like I said, we haven't had an election like this in our lifetimes.
Oh,
That
I
was
know. I mean, I can
vicious.
agree with you 100% on that. I'm almost 65 years old, and I never remember anything, even through the turbulent 60s, which was around the time when we were looking at, I'll call it the hippies, but when we have all of the times in the mid 60s when elections were very turbulent, and it was nothing even to this level, nothing like this that I can remember.
Well, even the fight for civil rights, as
Yeah,
bad as
well, that
was,
was
and it
all
really
in
was
that
bad.
same kind of time. Yeah.
Now we're having it so that people are just openly carrying firearms for the mere purpose of intimidating people, including intimidating politicians, and that could. So when we're watching all this, inside, we used to describe stress as like when you're at normal stress, it's like having both feet on the ground. As that stress increases, you're slightly lifting one of the feet. And the more the stress goes, the higher that foot goes. So right now we have one foot on the ground, the other one pointing at the ceiling.
Yeah.
And we wonder why we feel so off balance. And so in my estimation, I'd like to get your thought on this, is we need to find a way to help each other bring that foot down so we get back on 2 feet where we're balanced.
Yeah, you're right. Well, all right. I'm going to say a couple of things. All right. So my opinion is that nobody's going to be able to get back to zero or some sort of balance until there's a decision.
Right.
One way or the other. It doesn't matter which way it is, but whichever way it is, there has to be an outcome or a decision for people to sort of decide, okay, this is it. This is how it is. Yeah. Now, after that, I fear, unfortunately, that regardless of how it is, there's going to be a lot of people that are unhappy with how it is.
Sure.
And that scares me, but okay, that's just the way the world works. And so, so after there's a resolution about how it is, people will start to accommodate and get used to how it is. But that may take months. It may take months. I mean, I'm hoping it doesn't take years, but it may take weeks and certainly months before that ever comes to be. So our job, I believe, as helping professionals is going to be to help deal with people that are on either side trying to resolve whatever the outcome is. That's my feeling. That's my feeling.
I think you said so perfectly that right now there's so much ambivalence to where things are. We just don't know how to respond because, one of the things that I do with some of my counseling clients, I'm sure you work with some of this as well, is we do an exercise of what's the reality of the situation and what's my place in that reality.
Yes.
And once we know what the situation is, now we can find out what our relation to that reality is. But right now, the ship hasn't landed, so to speak.
Exactly, and none of us know. So we're all kind of in this ozone of what's happening and what's not happening, and so it's very up in the air. And I agree. We're sort of, none of us really know how to direct our clients because we don't even know ourselves.
Exactly. Well, I'm hearing the pretty music again.
I
so
heard that
tells
too.
me
Yes.
We're going into commercial, and my guest this
Okay.
evening is Dr. John Smith. You're listening to Viewpoint with Father John, and we'll be back in 90 seconds.
See you later.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personal funeral planning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
In the Inland Empire, you know how much it means to have neighbors you can count on, like the Cookout Kings who invite you over every weekend for Burger Palooza. Well, here's another good neighbor you can count on, State Farm Agent Joe Amlani. He and his team are here to help life go right when you combine your home and auto insurance, which can save you money and time. So combine home and auto and start the savings rolling. Call State Farm Agent Joe Amlani, 909-894-4619 today.
And welcome back. You're tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM. We're on the World Wide Web. For we people who are having problems with our brain tonight, is KCAAradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I'm pretty sure I'm your host, Father John Reed. We'll find out in a few minutes what's what. And,
You're not pretty sure you are the man.
All right. And I want to remind you folks, again, we're talking about getting good information. If you really want straight information, do look for my friend Glenn Kirshner and his program, Justice Matters. Now, give you a little background on Glenn Kirshner. He was a federal prosecutor for 30 years. Before that, he spent 6.5 years in the Army as a JAG prosecutor. So, he's a straight shooter. And I want to be real clear, this is not a paid advertisement. I'm doing this because I just want to turn you on to something that's factual, because right now, it's, we talked in the last segment that it's hard to know what's factual, what's not, and this guy's the real deal. So, again, Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner on YouTube. And, again, my guest this evening is my dear friend, and I consider him a mentor, Dr. John Smith, who is a psychotherapist, a professor, and author of the book, The Authentic Man, A Guide to Happiness and Purpose. So, again, I think you said it so correctly that after this is over, even though we'll now know more about what's going on after the election, which was probably going to take a week or two to settle. It won't be settled next Tuesday night. But I think people are going to have a quasi-post-traumatic stress experience.
Oh,
What do you think about that?
Well, to be honest, I'm already having one, and I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I'm already having that experience. So I can only imagine that the majority of people out there that, don't even know what I know are having similar stress, anxiety experiences. Maybe when the outcome is decided, they'll have less anxiety. But it's my judgment, and it's only my judgment and opinion, so I don't know for a fact, but I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better. And the reason I say that is because, okay, people are one way or the other right now. I don't think there's too many people that are in between. They're either going for what's already there or they're going against what's already there. That being said, that regardless of what happens, I think there's going to be an outlash publicly, nationally, based upon what the result is. Now, that's just my opinion. I hope that it doesn't happen, but I think it's going to happen. So regardless of that, people are really, I think, anxious about what happens. Not necessarily because they want this or they want that. I think they're anxious more about it's going to get ugly. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse before it gets better. What do you think, Father Joe?
I think you're exactly right. And, to go back on how, our secondary emotions of anger, the adrenaline rush that we get, it shields us from feeling anything else.
Yeah.
And I think once the adrenaline comes down, we're going to experience some real grief, no matter who wins.
Yes.
We're going to deal with, it's going to feel like an emotional hangover.
I agree. And I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people won't feel like they have to seek out mental health professionals to help them, but I just know on my gut level that there are a lot of people that are going to need mental health help.
Mm-hmm.
Not because they're crazy, but because they don't know how to deal with all their feelings, all the experience, whatever. There's going to be an increase in depression. We already see that there's an increase in depression and suicide. Yes. You and I should probably have a show on this not too far in the future, because suicide is extremely high, the rates. There's just a lot of stuff that people are going through that I think they're putting a lot of stuff on the outcome of the election. Mm-hmm. Regardless of the outcome, people are going to be hurt. The people are going to be damaged. People are going to be upset. People are going to be stuck. People are going to be depressed. That's just my opinion, but I think that I'm pretty well on track with that.
Yeah, I think one of the other things I'd like to throw in there that is happening as well, both sides are saying when this is done, we've won. Mm-hmm. And when that's the binary option that we're given, and we find that it doesn't matter who won, we still have this anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
That could lead to real desperation. And,
exactly.
And I personally would recommend, and I'd like to get your input on this, that people be very open to doing some short-term counseling to help them adjust to whatever the new normal is, either way it goes. Because the anxiety, like I said, once the adrenaline comes down, we're going to be dealing with some emotions that we haven't felt in a long time because the adrenaline is keeping us from feeling them.
Oh, Father, I agree with that 100%. It's terrible how that we have to think about that, but yes, that's actually true. That whatever's happening, whatever's going to be happening, whatever the results are pretty much going to be, gosh, I can't even tell you. They're just going to be so dramatic that people that are on one side or the other are going to experience some pretty major effects. I don't know. I don't know any way to prepare anybody for this. I kind of feel powerless, but then the problem is because I'm powerless because I don't know the reaction. I don't know the results. And so that's what makes me powerless.
Well, if your schedule would allow, the week following the election might be a good time to have that show on. The election's over, now what? And,
oh yeah. I'm in. Because I'm not saying I'm the best person in the world, but I know that I can help people regardless of which side they're on, which reaction they're having. Uh, you know, it potentially could even be a call-in type. So I don't know if that's what's on your page, but yes, we can help people. You and I both can help people who can overcome whatever this results, whatever it happens, whatever it brings.
You know, well, I think that'd be a good idea. I'm probably going to suggest you drive, but
I'm on it. I'm in my car right now over to your house. No, just kidding. But yes.
You could tell that Dr. Smith and I have been not just close friends, but pretty much brothers for a long time.
I love this man. If you don't know that this man is the most amazing man in the world, then you don't know who he is. But okay, thank you.
I keep telling
He's
you
a
to stop
great
looking
guy.
in the mirror and talking to your reflection.
I probably am, but yeah, you're right. Okay, all right. Sorry.
No, that's okay. And
Yeah.
and you know, this isn't a mutual admiration society, but you know, the reason I would have you more than anybody else on there is because, in fact, you know, I trust you more than anybody on these issues.
Thank
because
you.
You're
And
truly
I mean,
authentic.
that makes me feel really good, that I appreciate it because I know you're honest and telling me the truth, and the stuff I say to you is also true. So, you know, you and I both are pretty good guys, and I'm not saying that to pump us both up, but to the audience, I think that I think what we need now are leaders who are honest, who are capable of leading us forward, who give us correct information, and who help us to overcome whatever it is that we feel and overcome. And I don't know. But I'm just saying that Father John, I'm sure there are many others, but the two of us are both involved in helping you all to the best that you can be, and so I hope you trust us in whatever we have to say or offer.
Exactly, and brothers and sisters, I really do want to recommend, because this show later on tonight will be loaded up onto YouTube. We've given you a lot of information, so you might want to go back and watch it a couple times, take some notes, because we're in for a heck of a ride. And we don't just need seatbelts. We need the race card restraints at this point, because it's that bumpy of a ride, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. And I think no matter what, we got to start coming together as a society, because we really do have more in common than we have different. But what's really changed is in the last few years we've stopped listening to each other because we've felt threatened by one another. Because if we have different feelings, it's almost like, well, only one of us could be right. My experience has been, no, we could both be right at the same time. We could both be wrong at the same time. And the idea is to get out of who's right and to what's right. And we can only do that if we listen to one another. As Forrest Gump said, and that's all I have to say about that.
I love Forrest Gump.
Me too. Well, we're in the last few minutes here. I think we have about 7 minutes, I think. But you know, I don't tell time well. So, what are some thoughts you'd like to get people to think about while going through this process? What are some ways that maybe some breathing exercises or something to help us?
All right. Well,
at least get through next week.
All right. I'm going to give it a little different spin. Thank you, Father. But I'm going to give it a little different spin. All right. So people that are going through this are anxious, afraid, maybe angry, right? And there's nothing wrong with any of those feelings, right? They're all appropriate. The problem is that isn't helping them move forward with a clear mind, all right? I mean, let me give an example, all right? So, Father John, I know that you personally have been involved in many years in martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to ask you a question. So, in your years and years and years involvement in martial arts, how angry do you want you to be when you approach your opponent?
I don't,
Exactly. Why?
because it will stop me from being able to think. And,
Exactly.
And it makes
Exactly.
me want to go against the force instead of flow with the force. And when you flow with the
Exactly.
force, you
So
can
it's probably
accomplish more.
to your best advantage, rather than being angry at your opponent, to be calm, focused, and strategic, correct?
Yes.
Yes, I get that. All right. So then I'm going to put out to many of our listeners that there are a lot of reasons why you should be angry, why you should be resentful, why you should be upset. But the problem is that if you approach the problem in a place of anger, resentment, and upsetness, then you're not going to approach it in a strategic way, so that whatever you approach it with isn't going to necessarily work out to your best advantage. So I'm going to suggest that people that feel angry, resentful, upset anyway, are going to own that they're feeling that way, which is fine. I'm not telling you not to feel it. I'm telling you that when you feel it, you approach the problem in a strategic way so that you can take on whatever the problem is in a strategic way rather than an angry, resentful, emotional, violent way, which is what martial arts teach you, but a lot of people don't have the martial arts training, but that's what they teach you. So that's what I'm telling you right now, is that approach it in that way, which is a better way, not necessarily the best way, but it's a better way to approach it. What if I'm feeling... Huh? Go ahead, Father John.
Let me throw a little science behind that as well.
Okay.
I was taught that when we're operating from a place of fear and anger, when that's right front, it decreases our IQ for that moment by 50%.
Oh, really? Okay.
Worse decisions because of the fact that we can't think properly, and it actually brings our IQ 50% lower than it normally is when we're not feeling that way.
Ooh. Interesting. All right. So what we're both saying is that we're not judging your feeling, which is, let's say, anger or resentment. We're not judging your position for having it. All we're saying is that when you respond from that place, it's important to respond from a place of either calm, which would be the place of I'm not angry. I can't respond to anger with anger. I have to be strategic in how I respond to it. I can't respond to other emotions with anger, even if I feel it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having anger. The point being is, if I feel anger, it takes me away from the best way to resolve the situation. Would you agree, Father?
I would agree. You know, like the old expression says, the answer is not in the problem; the answer is in the answer. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that might be hard for a lot of folks, because when they're used to being angry, they respond in anger, and I get that. But if they're not getting what they want from the response that they have, then we just offered them a solution for how they might deal with it differently. That's all I'm saying. And
you said it very well. Brothers and sisters, you've been listening to Viewpoint with Father John on what our station we are? KCAA Radio. I just gave us an NPR station.
Hey, there you go. All right, good.
But we are on the NBC network, so before NBC fires me for doing that, my guest this evening has been Dr. John Smith, and as you heard, we're going to try to have him back in 2 weeks so that we can talk after the results. I want to invite you to tune in to this station Tuesday night for the election returns. Having said that, remember, there's 80% chance that, probably higher than that the election will not be decided Tuesday night, but we can at least see where we're at that moment in time. But most important, brothers and sisters, let's be good to each other. You know, we're all God's kids, and sometimes we forget that. And I thank you for allowing us to be in your home this evening. And
thank you.
And if you haven't been told this week, let me be the first to tell you I love you, and thank you for being a listener to Viewpoint with Father John. Many blessings to you and those you love, and many blessings to those that maybe you don't love yet. God bless. We'll be back next week.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.3 FM.
Carlson, America's leading Norwegian fish oil brand, specializes in both great tasting soft gels that are easy to swallow and fish oil liquids that don't taste fishy. That's right, Carlson provides the most extensive line of fish oils to meet all your needs. You can take Carlson fish oils with confidence, for Carlson fish oils are tested for purity, potency, and freshness. Ask for Carlson Norwegian fish oils today. That's right, ask for Carlson Norwegian fish oils today.
$10:50 a.m. Don't forget that number. And for you young people who got here by accidentally fat-fingering your FM band selector, we're an AM radio station, and AM refers to more than just the time of day.
This episode of the House of Mystery is brought to you by Legacy Food Storage. The best way to protect your family is by being prepared. LegacyFoodStorage.com.
New U.S. sanctions on Iran took effect today, 6 months after President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the international nuclear deal.
The sanctions target Iran's shipping, financial, and energy sectors, all key to the country's already struggling economy.
Bombs, which the FBI referred to as improvised explosive devices, were sent to the FBI's bomb laboratory in Quantico, Virginia.
We're in Mexico again tonight as thousands of migrants try to find a faster way to the U.S. border. The White House says it's now getting help from the Mexican government.
Breaking news out of Pittsburgh. The man accused in the shooting at the synagogue in Pittsburgh is pleading not guilty, and he also wants a jury trial. You can see he's facing 44 counts.
In the final seconds before the Boeing 737 MAX crashed into the water, it was traveling at more than 500 kilometers an hour. All 189 people on board were killed.
You've now entered the House of Mystery.
Crime, conspiracy, history, and science.
With your hosts, Al Warren, Mike Brown,
Julie Sav, Michael Butterfield,
Dr. Joseph Usinski, and Michael Hawley.
Heard on KCAA 106.5 FM Los Angeles,
102.3 FM Riverside,
and 105.0 AM Palm Springs.
Okay, we're back in the smoke again. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's about right. Is it worse again over in your area? Or?
It comes and goes, yeah. It was orange. The sky was orange this morning when I woke up.
Isn't that just crazy, eh? Just crazy what's going on. But it's supposed to clear out this weekend.
Oh, thank goodness.
So we'll wait and see. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of not a thing I count on. So no, because you keep hearing things and it just keeps coming and going. All this smoke and terrible. I guess now they're sending 300 Canadian firefighters down to the Oregon fire.
Wow.
Yeah, they're crossing the border to go save the the Oregon fires.
Yeah, it's really bad this year.
It's terrible. And for Washington and Oregon, they don't usually get it this bad.
No.
California has been for a few years now.